2023
Is your mic?
session of the San Committee.
Mike,
Mic's
It's on. Can you hear me?
no one can hear you back there.
Okay, we're starting the April 24th special meeting of the San Clemente City Council. We had a 5 o'clock session with closed session. Do we have any oral comments for that?
We do have one speaker card.
Before we begin the speakers, let the record reflect that we have a quorum. Councilmember Cabral, Enmeyer, and Mayor Pro Tem Noblock are present. Councilmember James and Mayor Duncan are not present. So let's go ahead with public comments.
Concerned resident?
That's okay. Good evening. I guess this is more for the city attorney, I'm not sure, but, the last council meeting, I was able to use my 72 hours to be notified that anticipated litigation involved me. Now we're back to this. I have no idea. Am I supposed to wait till you announce it, get in my car and drive down here if I want to say something about my anticipated litigation? Is there no requirement or courtesy or just transparency in the city that you can't post, that you won't post what it's about so that we can prepare, we can show up, we can state our case? I just request that you reconsider your position, give us notice. It's only 72 hours besides that, so, and I need a lot of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any more speakers?
Yes. Brad?
Come right ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, is this closed session, Brad, or?
It's just right now.
Okay.
This is just to follow up on Ruth. I think what she's trying to say is that the description of the closed session item in the past, before the new city attorney, has violated the Brown Act because when they knew who the party was, they didn't disclose it. And even recently, the way I've read it, and I'm not saying it's wrong, I just question more disclosure than less, Ruth's items should contain her name because she knows about the possible claims, and under the law, it's required to provide that information and relevant documents to any closed session item, or at least to any item. So I think we can clarify this by when you have anticipated like this one with no description at all what it's about, it leads everybody that's thinking about litigation that they may be the person and so they want to talk. So I just would hope that the new city attorney and city manager will list the person's name so that they don't have to be troubled and calling staff and saying, is it my item?
No additional speakers?
No additional speaker.
Okay, again, we don't have a closed session agenda. That item has been suspended apparently. So our regular meeting will begin at 5:15, which is in 5 minutes. So we'll take a 5-minute recess and come back and convene at 5:15. Thank you. Do we need a motion to adjourn for a recess? No? Okay, well, we have a recess. 5:15 PM. I'll begin with this call to order and ask Mr. Enmeyer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. All please rise.
Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. Councilmember Enmeyer and Cabral are here. Mayor Duncan is not present, nor is Councilmember James, so as pro tem, I'll be chairing the meeting. Do we have a motion of waiving and reading for all resolutions and ordinances?
So moved.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that carries 3-0. The first item is the approval of emergency professional agreement services with LGC Geotechnical, Inc. for the preliminary technological landslide evaluation at Casa Romantica and finding the project categorically exempt from the California CEQA. And with that, Mr. City Manager, do you have a presentation?
I do, and I have one order of business. There was a request for some oral communication. I don't know if you would like to do that before the item or after the item.
Let's do that after, so that whoever's commenting might have the benefit of the staff information.
Perfect,
But
thank you.
we'll do that after the presentation.
Perfect. I'll turn the time over then to the city engineer, Kyle Koger.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Kyle Koger, Public Works Director, City Engineer. I just have a short update for you on this, what's been going on. So tonight, we're asking for approval of an emergency professional service agreement with LGC Geotechnical to investigate and determine the parameters of the landslide at Casa Romantica. This is a not-to-exceed contract of $75,000, and this is only to study the areas of the landslide and determine the size of it. This is not design work or construction work moving forward. After this work is done, then we will come back and look at solutions of how to design and build something that will solve the problem. Assuming this item is approved tonight, LGC will have a drill rig on site tomorrow morning at 7:30 to start with one boring. They're also going to put in 2 inclinometers, but we'll need a smaller rig for that, so that'll probably be in the near future. We have to schedule that. The boring tomorrow will be taken in the parking lot. The 2 smaller borings and the inclinometers will be actually placed in the landslide area. And I took some photos today on a site visit that I'd like to just show you real quick. So this first photos, that's the Ocean Terrace, and you can see the little crib wall, retaining wall separating from the concrete patio. It's we've measured about 6 inches of horizontal movement since this started about a week ago, and we've seen 1 foot to 2 feet of vertical displacement. Next slide. This is in the landscape area. The photo to the left, if you look through the middle of it, you can kind of see a failure plane where the DG or soil is kind of separating. And then to the right is some steps that goes down to a view deck that's separating. Next slide. And this is a view deck on the north side of the property. It's a little hard to tell, but the soil is moving towards the ocean, and then this deck dropped about 1 foot. So the conditions are still moving slope out there. And that's all I had, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council members, any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. First of all, have we made contact with the OCTA or the railroad authorities?
Yes, sir. Staff met with as OCTA and Metrolink representatives last Tuesday afternoon, and they're also monitoring the situation. We'll continue to talk to them. They had expressed at that time that they might be willing to help or, go in partners on the solution.
Okay, so, well, I'll make a motion later on to direct staff to follow up with there, but there's also some properties below that are in the way of a potential landslide if there was one, right? And what have we done with the notification to them or?
Yeah, they've been notified. We don't know where the failure plane ends. It looks like it kind of moves northerly towards the building and then kind of diverts off to the west. The building, I think that you're referring to, it's on caissons. So we're not really worried that, it's going to topple over or anything. And we think that the landslide would probably shear along that building because it does have such a deep foundation. So we don't want to red tag the building yet. We want to just continue to watch it.
We still have weddings going on there,
I was told that we do.
and they're still using the patio.
They were told that they're not supposed to. They have plenty of other areas that they can use for weddings. So I talked to the executive director this afternoon, and told her that we need to fortify the back patio better than it is now, and that people should not be back there.
And what will we do to monitor? You and I went out there today, along with others that have been there, but it sure looks like it's a dangerous situation. I'd like to get assurances somehow or another that that back patio is not used, particularly for weddings, only because when you get people maybe having a drink or two, and the signage out there, as I read it, said, keep out today. That to me doesn't signal the kind of danger that really exists if people go walking around on a patio that has no dirt below it in some areas. So I just want to be sure that that you take the appropriate steps to make sure that that entire patio area in the back, aside from the building, is protected, and people know that they're not to be back there.
I talked to the director today and made it very clear that the signage needs to be a little bit stronger words. Particularly gave her some language to use. And they said they would have fencing by Wednesday installed. And we've going out there every day. We'll go out and make sure that it's sufficient. If it's not, we'll make sure it is sufficient.
The fencing I saw is movable. I mean, I was there, and it's been moved a couple of times, apparently. So the kind of fencing, it's the kind used in theaters. It's just, or at an airport, you just pick it up and you move it. So I don't think that really serves the function. I'm even thinking that maybe, no access to that back area below the structure itself, below those stairs might be the appropriate solution, only to protect the city and the citizens here from any potential liability, because I do know that when people go to parties and they're going to take a photograph, they'll go wherever they want, take photos. I've done it myself in the past. It says keep out, but not knowing the dangers, this is a little bit different. This is an extremely dangerous situation. So I want to make sure that we protect ourselves and the city from any potential liability.
Understood.
All right, thank you.
Brynmeier?
Yes, two questions. One, are we worried about any pedestrians and their safety below the landslide?
We thought about it, and typically they'll be walking, running, they're moving already, and so we feel like if something starts to happen, it would give them enough time to get out of the way. I can't predict what's going to happen and when it would happen. We've seen these types of slides further up the coast where they might move 5 feet and then they stop and then it sits there. So and then, or they could shear off and, a section could go down to the railroad tracks. It's hard to predict what will happen, but we thought about that, and since people are moving through that area, they should be okay.
My second question, once this monitoring equipment is put into place, what would be next steps for the city, determining that a landslide is inevitable or that we're safe? Like what would possible next steps be?
So they'll do all their borings and then take samples, analyze it in the lab. It'll take a few weeks for them to give us a report, and that report will basically tell us the area of the landmass, and they'll have recommendations or some potential solutions going forward. We know where the top of the slide occurs, or we think we know about where it is. We don't know where the bottom of the slide is. And that's what we need to determine the size of the soil mass. And then that'll, after you run your test, that'll tell you what you need to do to solve the problem to keep it from moving.
Just off the, I mean, not that this is in stone or anything, but do you have any idea of what those possible solutions might possibly look like?
So Cypress Shores just did a $12 million project that, we could use the same techniques, a tie-back and grade beam system, or maybe a caisson and grade beam system. Whatever solution you go with, it's not going to be cheap, though.
Great, thank you.
You have another question?
Yeah, I have a couple, yeah. What did you say the timing was on the initial first phase of just determining the extent of the problem?
I think it's going to be about 3 weeks, maybe
3
a
weeks?
month, yeah.
And then at that 3-week period, we'll be able to then start assessing a longer-term solution. We'll know what the real problem is.
I think so, yes.
And you mentioned the tieback solution. Was that paid for by OCTA and Metrolink, or did the city contribute?
We did not. We have some facilities that we're having to repair, but that was all paid for by OCTA, I believe.
Because of the danger to the tracks?
Correct.
And does this also pose a danger to the tracks?
It could, yes, sir.
It could, all right. Those are my questions.
Kyle, what concerns me is the safety of the public and the building, the condominium that's at the bottom of the hill to the north. You mentioned that any earth movement would potentially shear off that building, which has deep caissons, which would make the building fairly secure. But the bottom level has windows where people sleep and congregate on a regular basis. You said you've been in touch with the association. Tell me about those communications. I'm just concerned about their safety and how, if there's any movement, that they get immediate notification, and I'm just concerned that if there's going to be a danger other than on the track walking, that might be it. Tell me about that communication there, if you would.
I've talked to their property manager a couple of times, and I know our building official, who's off today, he's talked to him a couple times as well to tell him what we're doing.
When the, how do you pronounce inclinometer?
Inclinometer.
Inclinometer. When the inclinometer is installed, it's going to be encased in some quick sets type material. Will that inclinometer be removed ultimately, or will it be buried under the earth forever once our analysis is done?
I think it stays there because you assume that the failure plane is going to shift things, and I don't know that you can retrieve it after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The monitoring, once that inclinometer is in place, the monitoring takes place approximately how often? From the contract, I couldn't tell it. There was a price per minute of monitoring. Is it monitored on a 24-hour basis every minute?
I believe it's daily. They
Just
go out
once
and
a day?
take a reading. Is that right?
Readings daily,
One reading a day?
Yeah.
or as needed, they can go out more and more.
Okay, I just want to make sure those readings are communicated somehow immediately to the folks next door, so that if there's any movement, they get the quickest possible notification. Under the contract, normally I'm concerned about our contracts that have a timeframe. This one, interestingly, doesn't, which is great, but we don't know how long it's going to last. Is this contract? The contract says until the job is completed, but the job is an ongoing monitoring. Should we have a?
No, this should be finished in a month.
Okay, so the work
Yeah.
work that's contracted for should be completed within.
Yes, sir.
within that timeframe.
This shouldn't be a long-term contract. It should be several weeks. We'll get the final report, and then we'll have to sign a new contract for the next phase of the work.
Okay. In this contract, there was a reference to the cost with reviewing with responding agencies. I imagine the Metrolink and possibly the county and other agencies. The cost of responding to agencies' comments is not included at all in this, because they have an hourly rate for staff time. Are we going to get another bill for their communication time, or will it be billed under the rates that they've quoted?
No, I see them providing all the information to me, since we're the client, and then we'll relay that to any outside agency.
Okay, well, I'm just concerned, bullet point 7 says the cost of reviewing and responding to agencies is not specifically not included. So if it is included, I'm comfortable with that. If that's your understanding, you make sure the language properly reflects that.
Probably for the plan check.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
When you're
Go
done.
ahead, go ahead if you have questions. Go ahead.
I understand they're going to start tomorrow, if we approve this, with a larger equipment, and then sometime in the future, bring in smaller equipment that they could take back. Do you know what the status of the smaller equipment is and their accessibility to it?
I don't. There's limited amounts of this equipment, and so they're having a hard time finding folks that can do it in a timely manner, but they're going to continue to work on it.
So they haven't given you a timeframe?
No. I mean, they said, yeah, it could be a couple of weeks, but I guess they told us at first it would be a few months out, and then today they said, well, they might could have somebody within a couple of weeks, but they weren't sure. So I think it's just kind of up in the air right now.
Well, that raises the question, are there other companies that have all the equipment now?
This equipment is, like I said, it's not very readily available. So the LGC knows all the players
Okay.
in the industry, and they can contact anybody to do whatever they need. So they're working on it.
All right, thank you.
Do you have any additional questions?
So,
Comments?
Yeah, well, I just want to, I had a question in mind, but if there are any public comments on this item, this would be an appropriate time to hear them.
We do have a public comment on item 2A, which is the CEQA findings. That's for a concerned resident.
Is that relating to this item?
Yes.
Okay. Any comments on this particular item? Pardon me?
Staff hasn't commented on 2A.
This is under the report. Did you want to speak on CEQA? I think it was
My request is to speak on 2A.
discussing 2, and they just finished deliberations.
Was there any
correct?
discussion about the council approving the exemption from CEQA?
I'm sorry, let me ask the staff, are you complete, are you finished with
Please
your
pause my time.
presentation of the
need more
items
present
2,
time?
2A and B?
I think the question, Kyle, is you're seeking a categorical, man, Cat X. I'm so used to saying Cat X, categorical exemption from CEQA. Can you explain why you're seeking a Cat X?
And doesn't it require council?
I'm not an expert on CEQA, but I went through our CEQA guidelines and found a section on information collection, and that's 100% what we're doing is collecting information, so I felt like it should be exempt.
Okay, thank you. Madam City Attorney, do you have any concern with that conclusion?
No, sir.
Thank you. You, staff, have any additional information to present on item 2A or 2B? They're kind of combined there. If not, then let's hear from the public if there are any public comments on 2A or B.
Thank you for doing that. So as you know, I am a volunteer at the Casa Romantica, and it is the gem of this city. So I applaud you for getting this special meeting in. I applaud staff for their incredibly fast work on this. And I am amazed that they were able to review and request the approval of an exemption from CEQA. So the only thing I want to add is that it has been over 4 years since I have requested or the council categorically exempted a CEQA study to install 8 pickleball courts. Thank you.
Any additional public comments?
Charles Hightower?
Charles Hightower, 793 Cuyahoga Arta. I'm speaking now as a resident, not as my capacity on the Public Safety Committee. But those pictures that Kyle showed looked like my backyard, my neighbor's backyard about 3 years ago. And frankly, the backyard still looks like that. We've managed to find a company, 2 to put in piles to stabilize the house and label it, but we still have the subsidence. But what I want to point out about 2010, City Council passed an ordinance for the planning department that does not allow you to put any structure on your property unless you exceed the slope stability criteria of 1.5, and for earthquake, it's a little bit less. And that was considered a structure, the piers I was putting in or anything else I'll put in now. And it took over 8 months to have that plan approved through the plan checker. So I just want to say that particular ordinance that you have may be an impediment to this particular project. Fortunately, the city engineer at that time came out, looked at the problem, and we got it through. But it was kind of through a technicality, and we're having a lot of problems now in Calle Vallarta. That's 3 or 4 more homes are in the same boat, and I hope their building plans are completed quickly, because now you feel the emergency that I felt at that time. Thank you.
Any additional comments from the public?
No additional comments.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Yeah, I'll move to approve, as outlined in its entirety, approval of emergency professional services agreement with LGC Geotechnical Incorporated for the preliminary geotechnical landslide evaluation at Casa Romantica and finding the project categorically exempt from the California Environmental Protection Quality Act under Class 6 information collections of the CEQA guidelines.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That passes 3-0. And with that, is there any additional public comments to
Yes.
be made at this time? Go ahead.
AQ has something under oral communications.
Presentation. So my comment may be premature, but I wanted to share my thoughts and kind of remind people of the impact that Councilmember James has had in our community. Is it being queued up, Laura? Okay, sorry. Okay. Next slide, please. I think you could just roll with it, if you could just keep every couple seconds. In the years Gene has been on council, he certainly made himself a notable figure. What sets City Council member Gene James apart is he takes criticism, even from people like me, and turns it into a positive outcome. Not only does he turn it into a positive outcome, but he surpasses our expectations. I had an opportunity in walking around businesses with him on Del Mar, and those business owners all knew him. I went to another business, and they all knew him as well. One business owner said that he would do anything for Gene. Being a council member is not just knowing business owners, but actually listening to them and residents, but getting to know the issues that are important to them and advocating on their behalf. He took time to attend the City San Clemente Times Friday coffee chats at the Dorothy Visser Senior Center. At this weekly meeting, many longtime San Clemente residents would meet and discuss the issues facing our town. Many of these people have contributed to our city at various levels for decades and served on commissions, committees, charitable foundations, and some are former city council members. But above all, they all share a love for the city. These are residents that have supported and respected Gene James. He used his time on council to learn and develop an understanding of San Clemente from these residents. These are people who have shared their wisdom and experience. At times, they even debated certain issues where Gene came to understand the history and events that have shaped our town. I took to heart what Mayor James stated at the loss of San Clemente legend, his friend, Kenny Nielsen. Mayor Gene James said that he would look forward to his phone calls after every meeting, that Kenny would critique him on what he did wrong and he would congratulate him on what he did right. For those who don't know Mr. Nielsen, he was a longtime resident, a community activist who was involved in many organizations and who dedicated his life to improve our town. When I heard that he was critiquing and congratulating Mayor James on what he did right, it meant so much, as this praise was coming from someone who did so much for our town and dearly loved our town, as to give Gene his blessing. I bring this up because, as a longtime resident myself of over 50 years, we want our city leaders to really love our town. Gene James surely loved and embraced our town, and you could see that by all the wonderful pictures that I've included, and we will surely miss him if it comes to pass that he will be going. And I'm sorry that I didn't thank him enough, and so thank you very much, Gene James. Thank you for all your help, and because he really fought for us in the toll road and other matters throughout our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
No.
Okay, any future agenda items, council members? None. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Do you want to give the time to?
Oh, sir, yeah.
5:40 PM.
Next regular council meeting is scheduled to take place on May 2nd, 2023. Closed session will begin at 5 PM. At the regular business meeting will begin at 6 PM. The meeting will take place in the council chambers located at 910 Kyle Negosio, second floor, San Clemente. Aye.
3-0. Thank you very much. This meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.